The Continental Blockade was a large-scale embargo by French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte against the British Empire from 21 November 1806 until 11 April 1814 during the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon issued the Berlin Decree on 21 November 1806 in response to the naval blockade of the French coasts enacted by the British government on 16 May 1806. Aside from subduing Britain, the blockade was also intended to establish French industrial and commercial hegemony in Europe. Within the French Empire, the newly acquired territories and client states were subordinate to France itself, as there was a unified market within France, while economic distortions were maintained on the borders of the new territories. Napoleon is determined to be a Caesar, conqueror of the world. He sets out on this quest attempting to seize Europe for himself, with most of Europe under his thumb, and Austria and Russia tamed for the time being. It is time to turn his attention northwards to Great Britain, the leading economic power in the world. But unlike mainland Europe, Britain is an isolated isle across the English Channel. Therefore, he must sail there instead of march like he did to neutralize threats closer to home. He knows that English it's the best naval force in the world since the destruction of the Spanish Armada, once proudly called the Invincible Armada. It's a chess game, but he must try his hand of spades against aces, and so it happened Napoleon would measure strength with the British and face them near the Strait of Gibraltar, in the Battle of Trafalgar, where the English scored a crushing victory, assuring the English superiority on the sea, and forcing Napoleon to rethink the whole strategy to have full control of Europe. The emperor would come up with an ambitious plan called the Continental Blockade, which consisted of blocking Britain of trade from the mainland of Europe, in order to crush the British economy, leading to their capitulation and surrender to Napoleon himself. Of course, this plan could only work if every European nation with access to the ocean complied. Therefore, Napoleon sent instructions to everyone to close their harbors to any English vessel. Russia at first was not happy with the idea of cutting relations with Great Britain, but they would soon fall in line and convince Austria to accept the Continental Blockade. Pretty much every single European nation obliged to Napoleon's wishes, apart from a single nation on the end of Western Europe, which was Portugal. Being England's oldest ally and helping Portugal through the ages, King John cannot accept these terms and block Great Britain from Portuguese harbors, and so it happens he refuses Napoleon's terms. Despite knowing the mighty power of French military, Napoleon did not take it lightly, and prepares for the invasion and subdue of Portugal. So, in 1807, the emperor sends General Junot to Portugal with one end, the occupation and capitulation of the country. Junot it's not alone. Spain also sends troops to aid the French with the promise of dividing the country for both nations. The Franco-Spanish army marches through Portugal without resistance and arrive in Lisbon, only to find an empty capital, as the King John and the rest of royal family had escaped to Brazil and transferring the Portuguese capital to Rio de Janeiro. There it means that Portugal it's not subdued and a threat, as the king is in the new center of power in Rio de Janeiro and could send fleets across the ocean to raid the French coast. Napoleon is outraged with this deceit, but occupies Portugal anyway, leaving it under the control of Junot to pacify any popular uprising. The king might be gone, but the Portuguese people and soldiers are not. They are spread out through the countryside and with their blood boiling, waiting for the odds to be in their favor. The French are occupying the land, but they cannot oversee the entire country, and the people are not fans of the French, but they are really fond of their English allies and would do anything to help them make a foothold in the Iberian Peninsula. In the next year, the English would successfully make ship landing in Mondego Bay, with 14,000 troops, which would unite with Portuguese and win a decisive victory at Roliça, starting the recapture of Portugal to the Allies and defying Napoleon's superiority on the field away from the sea. Portuguese refusal was perhaps suicidal, but very important to threaten everything that Napoleon built, and more importantly the survival of Great Britain, because if Portugal had not refused Napoleon's terms, Britain would surely starve and their economy drain, and would succumb to France, and without a land to set their foot on safely, they could have never faced Napoleon's Grande Armée, and history would be much different today. Resilience. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button below for more content like this. Stay curious, Keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next video.